Welcome to Channel 17, the Town of Colonie Government Channel.
Welcome to The Money Factor. I'm Richard Naylor, your host. For most of us, getting money means getting a job or having a job. Our guest today is Thomas Denham from Careers in Transition. We'll be talking about the problem of a job search for people who don't have a job and would like to find one. I want to welcome you, Tom, to the show again.
Thank you, Richard, for having me.
It's great to have you back.
It's good to be back.
Well, this is a topic, we talked a little bit about it before the show. It's multifaceted, hard to know where to start. But since the show title kind of is job search, let's talk about that. How do you do a job search? How do you start?
Well, if there's one thing I would want the viewers to remember, it's the 3 stages of the career development process, and job search is one of those stages. And those stages are self-assessment, career exploration, and job search. And the 3 questions that they have to answer are, who am I, where am I going, and how do I get there? And those parallel those 3 stages. So when somebody is doing a job search, they really have to have a firm foundation in the self-assessment and the career exploration piece, because somebody will want to help them in their job search, and they'll be out networking, for example, and somebody may say, well, what are you looking for? What kinds of jobs you're applying to? And they may say, I don't know. And that means that they haven't done the self-assessment piece. And that frustrates the job search, and it becomes ineffective. So that's why the self-assessment is really the foundation of the whole process.
It's hard to know where to start, but maybe a good place to start is with younger people. They're just starting out. They would be a good candidate for the question of what do you want to do and who are you, I suppose.
And so would the 47-year-old, because I have many clients who are in their 40s and 50s who really have no clue, and they're oftentimes embarrassed, and they call me up on the phone and they say, I don't really know what I want to do, and when I grow up, and I'm in my mid-40s or 50s. But
is that more of a midlife kind of thing where they've changed? They thought they knew what they wanted to do, and now they don't?
Right. Many of these people are highly educated, bachelor's, master's degree professionals who have many years of experience, but reach a point in the life cycle where they say, this is just not doing it, or is this all there is? And I really don't know what my other skills and talents, I really don't know what's out there. And I want to explore my options before I make any kind of decision. So when we're talking about students, I have to do an assessment of where they are in the life cycle. Somebody who comes to me that's in their 20s is at a very different stage than somebody that comes in their 40s or 50s. So I have to take that into consideration. Right. When you're in your 20s, you're in this exploration stage. You're trying to figure out who you are, what's out there, how the world of work works to begin with. I mean, they don't know the unspoken rules that you and I know as professionals. And then they go into, the next stage would be establishment. That's where they're trying to make their mark and be number one in their particular field. And then the next stage is called maintenance. This is a super stage theory. And then the last one, I don't like the term, it's called disengagement. I would rather prefer to call it reinventment.
So this is the person who's maybe 80?
No, this is a person who's 65 or 55 that says, I have a lifetime of experience. I'm not going to sit at home on a rocking chair and watch TV all day. I want to continue to work. I enjoy work, but I want to reinvent myself. I want to do perhaps something different or maybe a different angle. I want to quit my current employer and maybe go off and do some consulting work or start my own business.
And in that case, it would probably be that they really wanted something different. They really don't want the same thing. They know that.
They want something different, but they need clarification of what that is. So before they do a job search, they need to get that clarification. So what I would do to help them is make sure that they know what their top 3 to 5 jobs are.
So that really turns things around. Instead of, let's imagine you're looking at the classifieds, although maybe they're online today, and you see all these titles, the opposite of what you're saying would be, okay, I see all these jobs, now what could I do?
Right. The problem is, most people's idea of a job search is, I hate my job, I hate my boss, I need to get out of here, go to the classifieds on Sunday and look at all these jobs. Only about 20% of jobs are ever advertised in the classifieds. So they go and they look at the classifieds. Most of the positions they're not qualified for, and then they quit and go back to drinking coffee and
And
pondering
complaining about their current
pondering
job.
about the fact that they have to go to work again tomorrow. The classifieds are not the best job search strategy. Networking, knowing friends, family, contacts, that's always the best job search strategy. But there's a lot of legwork that you have to do before you get to that point in terms of preparation. So
Yep.
before you start to pull the trigger on your network, you want to have laid the groundwork.
Uh-huh. Okay, well, let's go back to
Okay.
that then. We've got, how do you lay the groundwork?
Okay. It depends on where people are when they're doing their job search. Some person might be getting laid off. So they're in a more of a panic mode, in a crisis mode. So we'll talk about that in a second. But there may be another person who dislikes their job and wants to make a career change. That's another type of a job search. Another person may dislike their job and want to make just a job change. Some people have longer time horizons. I call it the quit index. If somebody comes to me, if 10 is I'm going to quit tomorrow and 1 is ideal, if they're a 9, they're in panic mode. They want to be out of there almost immediately. I had one person come to me and said that they were an 11.
They don't want to go back.
No, they didn't want to go back the next day. Mm-hmm. So I encourage my clients to come to me when they're like 5 or a 6, when they have time to plan ahead. Any job search could take 3, 6, 9 months to do, depending upon salary level, location, types of positions, and how much commitment that they're going to put into it. Obviously, if you're not sending out resumes each week, it takes longer to do that.
Now, our show this time is really more on the search part.
Mm-hmm.
So having that as a basis,
Yeah.
we need to know kind of what we're going for. We need
Right.
to know our skills. Let's
Right.
say you've gotten to that point,
Mhm.
and we want to stress that you've gotten to that point and not skipping it.
Right.
What do you do next?
I'll go back. Define your goals, your skills, values, and interests. Identify your top 3 to 5 jobs that you're going to go for.
And
Okay, that's the
does that
self-assessment
mean
thing.
like that's not fields necessarily?
You could start generally from the field, and then work down to perhaps an industry and then specific job titles.
Okay.
So that's the first piece. You need to start early during this process. You need to set a timeline that's going to be realistic. I mean, you're not going to get another job tomorrow. It's going to take a long time by the time you send out your resume and cover letter. Updating your resume should be done before you do the job search. That can also be a self-assessment inventory. You can see what you've done on a regular basis, and I encourage our viewers to update their resume at least twice a year. Maybe when you change your light bulb or you change the batteries in your smoke detector or
so
something
really
like that.
details here.
Yes. Then a cover letter, working on a draft of a
Oh, I
cover
see.
letter.
That gives you the cue.
That's the cue.
It's not that it's a trivial thing
Yeah.
that you put in there. It's that you need a cue to do it.
Right. You go to the dentist twice a year. Maybe that's
Okay.
the time to do it. Or you do it in January, or you do it in June, something like that.
Right.
I encourage people, anytime they do something significant in their work life, to write it down on a Post-it note and put it in their resume file. And then they can, 6 months from now, they'll have a whole bunch of Post-it notes in there, most of which they've forgotten about,
Right.
and then they can update their resume. But that's a future show.
Okay.
So working on resume, cover letter, and then once they've identified the types of fields, then they can start to identify the employers that would match those particular those.
And that's not always easy. We had another gentleman on the show, David Rooney, from, well, actually, he's from Center for Economic Growth, and I'm
Mhm.
confusing him with someone else. Let me just tell you what they said, though, that there's a lot of labor statistics out
Mhm.
there, which tells you that there are specific skills within a lot of different organizations. So
Mhm.
sometimes we think, well, I'm not a doctor, what would I have to do with a hospital? But hospitals need accountants, and they need all
Human
kinds
resource
and
professionals,
marketing people, and all kinds of things.
That's right. So, right, that's exactly right. So, when you are uncovering the potential employers and job titles, you're really doing a lot of reading and research. And so, one of the things that you would do during that process is you'd have a tracking system. You'd write down all the employers, you'd write down the contact person, website, email, phone number, fax number. Then you would write where you're going to, when you sent the resume out, when you made a follow-up phone call. The purpose of that follow-up phone call would be to request an interview. The purpose of the interview would be to get a second interview, which, if they grant a second interview, And then the purpose of that would be to get an offer.
Now that would be for a
That would be the
job that
process.
you've actually found that exists. It's a real job, not
Could
a
be,
cold
could
call.
be. Well, then we have to talk about the different techniques.
Okay.
There's a number of different techniques. One would be networking. You should spend most of your time networking. So instead of going on monster.com, you should spend most of your time networking. It's the most time-consuming part of any job search. But
Now,
that's
let's say
also
you
the
don't have a job, that would be more difficult, I would assume.
Yes, there are certain things that you need to consider. Obviously, it's best to find a job when you are employed, and then there are a set of parameters that you have to abide by if you don't have a job. When you don't have a job, it is your full-time job to find a job. When you are working, it really should be a part-time job. Most people don't devote the time and commitment and sacrifice to an effective job search. It's just they send out a resume over here and one over here. They don't put the whole heart into it. You get laid off, you're going to put your whole heart into it. Your livelihood depends on it.
And your family, probably.
And that's right. And one of the things that I would suggest is that people save up 1 year of income, just in case of downsizing, layoff, that kind of thing, so that you would be financially stable to go through that
to
transition.
get that footstep
Right.
to the next.
Yeah. So there's networking. You can target employers directly. You can go to a publication called the Book of Lists, which is published by Business Review, and you could send out your resume that way.
You have it downstairs.
You also can use your college career center. They usually have alumni listings, also more networking contacts, and also people to support you in your job search. And they can critique your resume and cover letter as well. On down the line, there are temporary employment agencies that sometimes have opportunities that are temporary but go to permanent.
Right.
Okay, you can find those in the phone book. You can also volunteer into a career, as I would say. If somebody is working with me and I had somebody that was a scientist in their 50s that wanted to get into environmental education. And so that person is volunteering at an environmental education center on the weekends. And as a result of that, he's networking with individuals there that can open doors for him. Plus, it's filling a gap in his resume that he doesn't have.
That really brings a little perspective to the whole thing. When you first said volunteering, I was thinking, well, I mean, you're locking yourself in and there's a good chance that this particular place is not going to need anyone. But that's a great way to network.
It's a great way to network, and if you don't have the skill sets and the experience that a particular employer or field is looking for, how are you going to get that other than volunteering? It's like if you do a job search and you're an apple and they want an orange, it's very difficult to make that switch, and you need some kind of intermediate step to help you there. It will help you with the networking context, and even if there's no opportunities right there, those people know people. So you've developed transferable skills.
Fantastic.
So there's volunteering, there is classified ads, there's career fairs, professional associations, and also these things called job clubs, which are another form of networking.
Now, you didn't mention the internet. There's a lot of talk about monster.com and
Sure.
the internet. How important is that?
I think it should be 5 to 10%
That's not much.
of your job search. That's how much time you should spend on the internet. There are plenty of opportunities, but as soon as those opportunities go public, you have everyone in the country
Mhm.
having access to those opportunities.
And you had already said that what percentage of jobs are basically not advertised?
80% of jobs are found through networking.
And I suppose some of those were advertised, but someone else got them anyway
Right.
because of
Because
networking.
maybe somebody was lobbying for them. I
Right.
know when I was the director of the Siena College Career Center, I would get a stack of 100 resumes for a position in my office, and I would get a phone call from another department that would say, you don't have to interview this person, but I would encourage you to do that. It's your choice. This is a really good person. Please give them a little special consideration. So that resume goes to the top
That doesn't
of
hurt.
the pile. It doesn't hurt. It's like somebody on the inside lobbying for you.
Now, what about etiquette? I could imagine that someone hearing this thing about networking and not already being a networking type, because some jobs are more outgoing and you meet people anyway and you're networking naturally as part of your jobs.
Mhm.
Others, you're more focused on your own thing, and they're not really that comfortable with the idea of networking.
Right.
is there an etiquette to that so they don't feel like they're being pushy or taking advantage of people because they have an ulterior motive or something?
Well, in Myers-Briggs type indicator, which is a personality assessment, there's two types of individuals, or there's two types of preferences. One is the extroversion preference, and the other one is the introversion preference. And it's how you get your energy. Extroverts get their energy from other people. Introverts get their energy from within themselves. How does this relate to networking? Extroverts are very comfortable going out and schmoozing, have no problem walking into a room full of people that they don't know, sticking out their hand and selling themselves. The introverts are the types of people that would walk into that room and go over by the food and stand by, in the corner and maybe talk to one or two people during that time. So introverts need to do very limited, targeted networking with their inner circle first.
So they accept to some extent their personality.
Well, when I counsel people, introversion is not a negative. It's just they work differently. So their networking strategy should be within their inner circle, whereas the extrovert is going to use the inner, the middle, and especially the outer circle. It's going to cast a wider net. The introvert's going to start from the middle and work outwards. The extrovert could work outwards, inwards, could use all those different strategies.
Right. So I guess, is there something that you could say to make them feel that this is okay? Or is that a problem with someone? I was trying to get at, not necessarily ethics of whether it's right or wrong, but just making them feel more comfortable that it's okay.
We have a hard time asking for help, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the things that I've learned running my business and being an entrepreneur is I'm just amazed at how many people want me to be successful and how much information and knowledge that they want to share with me, whether it's regarding technology or business operations, business plans, marketing, sales, referrals, things like that. And I think in general people want to help other people. But it also really depends on that first step. Did you define your goals? What you need to do in a job search is come up with your 10-second sell.
Mm-hmm.
Who are you? What are your skills? What are you looking for? And then ask for the referral.
And don't be ashamed to ask.
Don't be ashamed. It's you are the product now. And you're going through your sales pitch. And that's why extroverts who are typically in sales tend to do very well in the job search, because they can sell their product. But you have to know that product first. If you don't know what's on your resume or you don't know your skill set,
right?
You are the product. So if somebody says, well, what kinds of jobs are you looking for? And they say, I don't know. They really don't know what the product is. So how can you sell that product? So
it would sound kind of silly the other way. You're trying to sell something to someone, and it's a thing, and they say, what is it? And you say, I don't know, but it's cost this much. I mean, that's crazy.
Yeah. So we have to take those same principles and apply them to our job search. So anytime I go out at a business meeting and we're asked to stand up and give our 10-second sell, I say something like this. Good morning, my name's Tom Denham. I'm managing partner of Careers in Transition, career counseling for the Capital Region, and I help people find out what they want to be when they grow up. A good referral would be somebody who's in their 30s, 40s, or 50s that doesn't know what's out there and wants to explore their options. Again, my name's Tom Denham with Careers in Transition. How's that?
That sounds good.
Okay. So
I use it myself, but
it's a little canned, but I do the inflection. But we need to do that for our job search. What are the top 3 to 5 jobs that you're looking for in priority order? If you just say one thing, maybe that particular person doesn't have anyone in that field, and you have to do the ask. You have to ask them, do you know of anyone? Well, do you know of any jobs, but then do you know of anyone in this field that can help me?
And I guess the other part of that puzzle is you're asking them for something, but you're really asking them about something that they need, that you would like to supply. So why would you be ashamed to help someone?
Right. And then it can come, they can get personal satisfaction in the fact that they helped you. You may want to barter. If I was doing a job search, I might take you out to lunch and tell you a little bit about where I am in my job search, what I have to offer, and see how you can help me. And I would take you to, 677 Prime, or I'd take you down to Jack's or something like that and buy you a nice lunch.
And in that case, you would know exactly why you were doing it, and they would also.
Right. Ahead of time.
And that's the honesty.
So when you're doing that networking, you're asking for advice, you're not asking for a job.
Right.
And people are more than willing to give advice.
I want to go back to something that became very obvious as you were talking about all the work involved, a full-time job, part-time job. I think some people maybe as you said, some people don't put everything into it. They don't take it seriously enough. They think, okay, I'm focusing all my attention on this want ad, and they're locked in like it was a slot machine that they're going to influence, but they're not going to influence it at all. They're not spending the time doing all the details to make the money and to find the job. So I guess the question is, how do you motivate the person who is motivatable, but who hasn't really realized that this is really a lot of work and there are a lot of details, and just relax and do it all?
Well, that's not to put in a shameless plug for my business, but people need ongoing coaching. And wives, husbands, spouses, family members, terrible career counselors because they have a vested interest in that. So whether they're working with me or another professional, they need that ongoing guidance and support. One, to bounce ideas off of, but then to get the motivation and inspiration to actually do the job search. So for example, just before I came over here to tape this show, I was talking to somebody who I'm staying on top of and making sure I'm his accountability buddy. I'm making sure that he's doing the details and the action plan. And again, in career development, self-assessment, career exploration, job search, the job search is really the action plan.
So it's like a sporting coach. If you need somebody to keep you pushing those reps, you better get them.
That's absolutely right. If an athlete comes to me, a job seeker comes to me, and they say, I want to win, I'm going to say, well, what do you want to win at? Or they want to say, I want to play sports and I want to win. Okay, well, what sport do you want to play? I have no idea. It's just like going back to self-assessment. Well, do you want to play with ball sports? Do you want to play, something in the water? You have to narrow down that focus. And so, maybe you would try 3 sports.
Which
you would explore,
you'd
identify 3 sports in self-assessment, and in career exploration, maybe you'd try some of them out, and then later on, then you'd specialize in the job search. So there's a lot of analogies. For me, career development is about winning and helping my clients win, and you have to be committed to the process. You just can't come to practice a little bit and then be expected to be a superstar. And like sports, you have to put your whole heart and soul into it, and if you don't, you wind up in 4th place, and nobody remembers 4th place.
In a way, that ought to be a little encouraging, because if you just think it's all luck, somebody was in the right place at the right time, then you're discouraged and say, nothing ever good happens to me. But if you realize that you really can control it by working hard, it should be helpful.
There are some aspects of the job search that you can control, and then there are other aspects that you have no control over.
That.
Everything for example, you have your resume. You can control that. You can control the content, how you present yourself, laser print, the type of paper you put it on, whether you send it in FedEx or regular mail, whether you fold it or not, whether you staple it or paperclip. Those are the things you have control over. You have control over that. You have control over your cover letter. You have control over the jobs that you apply to. You don't have control over how many other people apply to that job. You have control over maybe you can lobby to get your resume to a higher stack. You have control over how you handle yourself in the interview. You have control over the follow-up. You don't have control over whether they're going to give you an offer or not. Then at the end, you have control over evaluating the job offer and accepting, rejecting, or stalling and trying to negotiate more money. So you need to know what are the parts that I control and what are the other parts I can't control. And for me, many of my clients are not sending enough resumes out there.
And they could be.
And they could be. You need to send out X amount of resumes to generate X amount of interviews and to generate X amount of second interviews that are going to generate X amount of offers. So if you're only sending out 3 resumes and hoping and wishing, and that employer is getting 100 resumes, you need to be sending out more resumes, because the more rejections you get, the closer you are to getting an interview. If the resume is getting you interviews, I'm sorry, if you're getting interviews, the resume is working well.
Right.
If you're not getting offers, you're not doing something right during the interview process. And that's why I encourage clients to have a mock interview, a videotape practice interview, where I get to rip them apart.
Well,
it's fun for me, but not for them.
Well, it should be, in a way. I guess it's not fun for them, but it's very positive.
It's needed. It's required.
You get better, and that part could feel good once you've made it better. and you look at it and say, oh, that looks a lot better. Now I feel better.
Right.
Not when he was telling me how bad what I did before looked.
Well, when I tell my clients, I think you really need a mock interview, you know, their eyes roll back, and I tell them what's involved. It's a half an hour interview followed, and it's videotape. It's followed by an hour analysis. They think, why would I want to pay Tom money to get beat up? But they know once they see themselves on that tape and all the minor and sometimes major mistakes that they're making, that I haven't had one person walk out the door that said it wasn't worth the time or the money. Plus, I'm going to give it to them on a CD, and I encourage them to take it home and also review it before the interview. It's very important.
Now, feedback, that is a kind of feedback. You mentioned, okay, you send out a letter, a resume, you don't get any takers. Maybe there's something wrong with that, or maybe you're applying to the wrong places. And then the next step in the interview room. Now, how do you get feedback on that next one? You go to an interview, they never asked me back, right? You go to
Right.
16 interviews, nobody asked you back. How do you get the feedback you need because the counselor wasn't there?
Right. That's a very good question, and it's complicated because there are some employers that would be more than happy to give you feedback. And then there are other employers, as a result of risk and liability, that don't want to give you any feedback. They'll say, we have found a candidate that's more suitable for our
Form letter,
for our needs.
time.
Right, exactly. They don't want to get into any kind of liability issues where they could potentially be sued.
So you asked them all.
You could ask them. In order for me to better prepare for my next interview, and again,
Sounds
I want to
good.
thank you for letting me come in and have this interview. I've learned a lot about myself. Is there any advice that you would give me as a result of my interview that I could improve on and see what happens?
And if you probably put it not in a really extreme way, so you would make them feel that they were slamming you. You know, do you think I'm the worst candidate
Right.
you've ever seen? Well, that doesn't even help. But to put it in a tone of voice the way you did, so that they feel like, well, it's just one thing. Yeah, you have a lot of great qualities, but if there was one thing,
Right.
maybe it would
I mean,
be.
if you got on the phone and said, I totally wanted that job and you crushed me, what the heck? I had everything that you wanted.
Bad.
Very bad. I mean, it immediately puts them on
Don't
the
ever
defense.
apply again.
But you're going in very open and asking them in a polite but professional way. Hopefully, as it depends on the relationship that you've had with them and corporate policy, that sort of thing, to help you improve in this process.
Our time is actually much shorter than I even anticipated it could be. As you said, this could go on, and we could do a half-hour show just on a resume. So I want to make sure we don't miss anything. I think we got big things in terms of accepting the amount of time, as you said, that you need to put into this, and getting feedback.
There's time, there's commitment, and there's sacrifice. A job search always takes longer than you ever expected. You have to have somebody that's going to be your accountability buddy during the process. I would encourage people to go on to the internet, type in job search strategies. I have some on my website as well. I would go out and get a good job search book, read 10 pages a night. This is a very complicated process. It could involve relocation, it could be local, it involves salary, it involves benefits, it involves flexibility, it involves coworkers, office politics, corporate culture, other fringe benefits. So when you're looking at a job and doing a job search, it has a lot of components to it that people have to take into consideration.
Let's loop back just one more time on the networking, and then I'll give you another chance to add one more important thing. But the networking, you said, is vital.
You have to be networking before you need a job. And that's a lot of work. It's like staying in shape in a sport. You don't want to get complacent and then all of a sudden say, oh, well, I want to go to the Super Bowl. Well, you're completely out of shape. You want to continually increase your network, continue to develop that network, keep in touch with people. You're going to, again, in your network, you're going to have those three circles. You're going to have your inner circle of contacts.
Now, let's define those circles as maybe almost a last thing.
That's the closest circle. That's the circle that you're going to go to first, especially if you're an introvert. Those are the people that will love you no matter what you what you do. They're the people that have been around 10, 15, 20 years in your life.
So the people you know, they're not necessarily the people around you.
They know you. They understand you. those are the closest people. Those
People
are
you
your
can
trusted.
talk
Those
to.
are your trusted allies right
Okay.
there. And then you start to go out into this middle circle of people that know you, but not as well as tightly as this inner
And they
circle.
may know the other people.
And yeah, there may be, and sometimes this middle circle of people comes into the inner circle, and then they kind of go out. Then you have this outer circle of colleagues. Like for example, I have 1,100 people in my address book, my email address book. Some of those are in the inner circle, some are in the middle circle. Many of those are in the outer circle. Okay. Some of those outer circle people come into the middle. Sometimes they come into the inner circle. Sometimes the outer circle people, they just go right out. You can't manage 1,100 people as much as you can your inner circle. So those are the three concentric circles that I want people to think about when they're networking. Don't just go immediately to an outer circle person. If you start in the inner
So
circle,
you don't say, oh, maybe I could go to the president of the bank. That's not going to work.
well, you know, the other thing, one of the things you may want to think about is testing out your 10-second sell and your networking skills on the inner circle before you go out to the president of the bank in your outer circle.
And make a fool of yourself or not.
What's that?
And make a fool of yourself if you don't
Right.
really do it right.
Right.
So you feel comfortable.
That's right. If you're working with that inner circle of folks, you're going to get your 10-second sell down. They're going to keep, you know, when somebody asks you for the 10th time, what is it you're looking for? What types of positions? Where do you want to go with your life? After a while, you're going to get that down so that when you go out to the other circles, you'll be more practiced. This is really about practicing. Networking is about practicing. Job searching is about practicing. Winning a sport is about practice. Mock interviews, interview skills, it's about practice. The more time and effort that you put into it, the more you get out of it.
That sounds like a good ending note there. I want to thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
I know we can't ever wrap up this topic.
We'll just
but-
have another show
That
on
sounds
some
good.
aspect of career development.
Sounds good. I want to thank everyone who watched. I want to invite you to the next show and hope you have a great week. Take care.
Welcome to Channel 17, the Town of Colonie Government Channel.